In the wake of Donald Trump's historic win, you actually have several Democrats and pundits coming out and saying, you know what, it's time to do a little bit of soul searching and figure out what the heck went wrong. Now, of course, whether or not they're serious about that remains to be seen. However, people like Sunny Hostin over at The View, they ain't having none of it. So, of course, before we get to these clips, please like and comment on this video so we can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
New article in the Wall Street Journal claims that the shift to the right in this election reveals that Americans view themselves as belonging to a particular economic class more than their race and gender. And Bill Maher said it's not the only thing Democrats got wrong. Take a look.
Someone must tell the usual suspects on the far left that the saying is, when you're in a hole, stop digging. You just lost a crazy contest to an actual crazy person. What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Asked if racism is built into our society. White progressives agreed with that at higher levels than black and Hispanic people. They don't want your pity. And black people can't afford to indulge rich white people's need to endlessly flagellate themselves. They just want prices to go down and good jobs and the police when you call them.
I just, I know that as a country, it's very difficult for people to believe that racism and misogyny, they're just alive and well. I think that we don't want to think that about ourselves, our neighbors, our friends, but it's my lived experience tells me that it does still exist, even if your lived experience doesn't tell you that it exists. And, the facts support that. I think we have a graph. If you look at there's a clear racial divide in who voted for Trump as opposed to who voted for Kamala Harris. It's very clear. It's not only clear by race, but it's also clear by education. And so the notion somehow that that is not true, this is by education. Those who attended college voted for her at a higher degree than those that didn't.
But I think
I've
you're
said
missing
that,
his point.
Let me just finish. And so I've said that before, and there was so much backlash because I think it's an uncomfortable, inconvenient truth about this country.
But his whole point is they didn't vote for him because of racism and misogyny. They voted for him because they felt like, I think the biggest common denominator in this election is people want a good life and ability to provide for their family.
Well,
and whether we agree or not with Donald Trump's plans,
black people
they thought that he was reflective.
One of the poorest demographics in this country, but they voted for Kamala Harris.
But there was a split, and more of them voted for Donald Trump than had historically. I think that there's such a desire. If you really think the vast majority of this country voted because of racism and misogyny, you're missing it. Most of my family, a lot of my family doesn't have college degrees.
But the stats are the stats.
But that's not, it doesn't say I'm white, I voted for Donald Trump because of racism. That's not, let me just, what stat are you talking about?
Let me just dissect the two.
Yes, you can.
Wait, hold on. Calm down, everybody. Just take a breath. Take a breath.
Well, so, of course, Sunny Hostin doesn't see the issue. To her, every single thing is seen through the lens of race. And the only reason you could possibly vote for Donald Trump is because you're a racist misogynist, right? That's the only possible reason. It wasn't that Kamala Harris had bad policy and she wasn't a likable candidate, that no one actually voted for in any type of primary, right? It wasn't any of that. You are obviously only voting for Donald Trump because you yourself are a horrible, terrible person. All 76 million of you, not to mention the record number of black voters, the record number of Hispanic voters and Asian voters, right? None of that matters to Sunny Hostin, okay? And of course, she's looking at the chart behind her, right? The stats are the stats, right? And Alyssa Farah Griffin has to say, that is not what it says. It does not say that you voted for Donald Trump because you're one of these awful, terrible people. No, you voted for Donald Trump and you happen to also be white or black or Asian, right? That is all it says. But of course, as Bill Maher pointed out in his little segment there that they highlighted, yes, guess who thinks that all of these racial tensions are a thing, right? It's the white liberal people, right? It is not the blacks as much. It is not the Hispanics as much, okay? And as Sunny Hostin can talk all she wants about her own personal lived experience. Well, guess what? Racism will always exist in some quantity in every direction, all right? And the reason that happens is because we're not perfect. We are flawed beings. However, we can, of course, minimize this like we did in the 2000s before Barack Obama came in and made it a huge issue and blew it all up over college campuses, okay? But Sunny Hostin, floating through that brain of hers is that the only reason you could vote for Donald Trump is because you are the wrong type of person. And now, of course, as I mentioned, as several Democrats and people on the left are trying to come to terms with the Donald Trump presidency, we're going to see some reaction here about the Joe Scarborough fiasco, about them bending the knee to Donald Trump. Let's check this out.
So Joe Scarborough and Mika have spent a long time warning about you-know-who poses a dangerous threat to the future of democracy. So this morning, they surprised a lot of viewers when they talked about how they spent the weekend. Take a look.
Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications. For nearly 80 million Americans, election denialism, public trials, and January 6th were not as important as the issues that moved them to send Donald Trump back to the White House with their vote. Joe and I realize it's time to do something different, and that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him.
So is this the approach that is going to work with a gentleman who campaigned on calling the media the enemy of the people?
So I actually think it was the right thing to do. And I've heard a lot of folks on the left coming after Joe and Mika saying, don't normalize him. Well, 75 million plus American voters normalized Donald Trump by making him President-elect Donald Trump. We need to stop demonizing people because they supported a man who just became President of the United States. We should hope good people are around him and smart journalists are challenging him.
Well, look, there is a sobering reality, right? Which is that we have, in 2016, I think people voted for the unknown and voted thinking maybe the gravitas of the office was going to change him. It didn't. In 2024, people voted knowing who he was. And nothing that he is doing, as concerning as I find it and disturbing as I find it, should be shocking, because he told us he was going to do these things. Yeah. He was surrounded by the people he's appointing, and he is keeping to his word, and people voted for him knowing that. And so it's hard. It's a sobering truth. It's hard to reconcile that with what we have been doing for the last 8 years.
Look, the bottom line is that America needs a free press that is willing to speak truth to power right now, more than ever. And I think that we have to be very clear-eyed when we think about the president-elect and cover the president-elect. And I don't think you need to sit down for 90 minutes at Mar-a-Lago and kiss his ring to be able to speak truth and to be able to cover a story. So maybe they're not journalists in the true sense. Maybe they're saying that they're opinion journalists. But we have to remember that Trump is the guy who ushered in the era of fake news. He is the guy who ushered in alternative facts. He is the guy who attacked 3 black female journalists. He's the guy that revoked Jim Acosta's press credentials for asking him a question. And so I think that this president-elect, I hate to say it, would like nothing more than to have only Fox News cover him, would like nothing more than a state-sponsored media. And I don't think he can be trusted in the way that other presidents can be trusted. This is an aberration.
But the reality is he doesn't just have Fox News. He didn't do a lot of mainstream media this election, but he went on Joe Rogan and reached 50 million people. Yeah. None of us could talk to Donald Trump again. No mainstream legacy media could. And he's still going to reach the vast majority of this country. So I actually think extremely highly of both Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. I don't think this is opportunistic.
So, of course, I want to start this off by pointing out how crazy it is that Mika Brzezinski Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough want, of course, have an open dialogue with Donald Trump. Now, in a normal world, it wouldn't be crazy for supposed reporters or journalists, etc., to want to speak with the president-elect. However, Mika Brzezinski on The View just 2 weeks ago said some pretty inflammatory things about Donald Trump.
Nobody gets a pass on inciting an insurrection. Nobody gets a pass on saying he fancies Hitler and wants to have generals like his. Nobody gets a pass on insulting veterans and saying those who died for our country are suckers and losers, except for convicted felon Donald Trump.
Yes.
And guys, here's the warning. You all have set it up, but let me take it a step further, please, if I may. This is called normalization.
Yes.
This is the descent into fascism, if we so choose.
Well, apparently Mika is pretty ready to normalize all of Trump's behavior, right? Because now they're taking a huge step back, a complete 180, and saying, hey, Donald Trump, please let us into Mar-a-Lago so we can have this open and fair discussion, okay? But let's talk about Ana Navarro, surprisingly being the level-headed person at the beginning, talking about, hey, Trump apparently has the mandate. He won the election. He has the support of the people, right? She may not like it, but she is acknowledging that. And of course, that all actually devolves into fear and anger later on, but either way, she has the right sentiment, all right? But then Sunny Hostin, she has to come out and say, oh, Donald Trump, he actually coined the phrase fake news and alternative facts. No, he stole them from the left, right? They were trying to call Donald Trump fake news. So what does he do? Donald Trump says, that's mine now. Okay, CNN, you're fake news. You're lying to your audience. And now this term is now synonymous with the leftist mainstream media, and I love what it's become. But Sunny also says that Donald Trump would love to have a state-run media. Yeah, kind of like NPR, where over 90% of the people who work there are actually liberal Democrats, right? But that, of course, is where we're all coming from. Donald Trump has a whole bunch of pushback, has a whole bunch of support from wide swaths of America. But what are they worried about? Oh, we're losing control of the message, okay? But then she goes on to say that, yeah, we have to have reporters speaking truth to power. Where have you been the last 4 years? Ignoring, of course, Joe Biden's complete mental breakdown, ignoring Kamala Harris's actual imploding campaign. Of course, we have to have a free and fair press, but we haven't had that for a long time, right? NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, right? All of them are left-leaning organizations and have covered Donald Trump with a 90% negative slant and Kamala Harris with a 90% positive slant. So yes, we do have to have reporters speaking truth to power. The problem is they haven't been doing their job. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay safe out there, people, because they're coming after you.